All right, welcome back to another episode of Waking the People. I am your host, Sir Chad Everett Broshears, and I'm guest or not guest hosted. I'm sorry. I'm co-hosted with my partner in crime. Not really. We're too law abiding for that, but Joshua. So Joshua, go ahead and intro yourself, my man.
Yes, I am the one and only Joshua McClendon. We got a great show for you guys today. A lot of content, kind of a little bit different views on things. We got more of kind of a current event going on. They're both kind of made up of two current events, but we got some current events going on. And we also kind of have some abstract thought that Chad's going to share just to kind of go along with that current event that we're currently going through. So good show, a lot of content. Some pressing matters, especially what I'm going to talk about. It's kind of the deadline is coming up soon, so it should be exciting.
Oh yes, absolutely. That's one that I really want to make sure that we're clear on, because we do have this deadline and it's looming. With as of today, how many days left do we have before that election's fully taken place?
So we got the 5th. No, is it the 5th or the 6th? It's this Tuesday. What's my calendar at?
Yeah, that'll be the 5th.
So we got the 5th for the Georgia Senate race, which is going to have really, really big impacts on our country and our government, probably more so than even the political or the presidential kind of debacle that we're currently in. So a lot of people like to overlook Senate races and like governor races and House representative races, but they're just important, guys. And if you're not paying attention, or if you're not looking to see who's taking what seats and who has majority, they can have some really big impacts going forward.
Yeah, I agree. And this is some of the stuff that I've found myself ignorantly looking in at when it comes to the Senate and Congress positions. So it's like, I looked at it and I was like, oh, well, look, we just got a Democrat seat overturned to Republican and Florida. And in my ignorance, I'm like, oh, well, that's okay. That means that we're going to balance out anyway, because we're still going to have, that many more. So if we lose one of those two seats in Georgia, we should be fine because we picked up another one in Florida. And it doesn't really work that way.
No,
Right.
no.
But
Yeah.
that's my ignorance, right? But that's also part of this entire show is to, one, we want to bring our ignorance to the table and to dispel whatever it may be as we grow together in this process. So it's becoming more and more politically aware and how politics actually affects our life on a local and federal level. So local, state, federal, most of us, I think I'm speaking mainly for myself. I was asleep until December, January 2018. So I was asleep until then. Right. I was
Your
focusing on
birthday?
all local things, but nothing, not even politics, but just business. Grow my business. The rest of it's not my business. Now
I
I
know.
woke up since then. So waking the people, right?
I like to call it my birthday. People say, "What's your birthday?" And I said, "You want spiritual or you want, actual physical birthday?" Because spiritual would be March 17, 2020, when I was actually born and realized the world we're living in as far as governance go and our political system. But physically, I was born in 1991. So yeah, so that's your birthday. Congratulations.
Yeah, right. It's interesting. There was a January, and you know who woke me up, by the way, was CNN.
Really?
Yeah, they woke me up like a screaming alarm clock. You know, and what it was is, and I've shared this before, and I believe I shared it in the first episode, but it was just I watched the entire broadcast from a presidential, like it was a presidential address. Trump was addressing the nation, and I watched the entire thing, thinking I'm going to give this guy a shot, and then I caught CNN right after, and they took a clip out of it, narrated their position on it, so they added their own spin, showed you the clip, and then ended the clip with their spin again, and built this narrative around what he said that he actually didn't say, but they wanted people to believe it. And that's what I was like, something's wrong here. There's egg on my face. That's what I felt. I was like, this is beyond okay. I'm actually getting. I became livid at that point. So yeah, that was the waking up. It was right after I bought my house. I was taking a shower, went to get out, listening to NPR. And I'm like, oh, NPR is just about to talk about this, and I'm like, well, let me get this other thing. And actually, I believe it was NPR was publishing, or they played the audio clip from CNN. As they all work, I noticed they all work together. People like NPR is nonpartisan and all this, and no, they're not at
Yeah.
all. They're
I don't know if
extremely.
we have a nonpartisan, media system. I don't think it exists. They
No, I
all,
don't think so either.
they all coordinate. The stories go around the circle. It's like the game of
Yeah,
telephone. You know what I mean? And we don't know where
yeah.
it starts.
I believe they call that one Operation Mockingbird.
Yeah, yeah.
It's just the more that they publish the same content, the more people think that it's true because it's the masses believing it, or there's a larger number of belief that it's true. Uh, the scientific industry, or the scientific process, actually takes into consideration, uh, regardless of how often the information has been published or recreated or stated, does not mean that it's accurate. So there's actually a catch in the scientific process that helps us stop from that, but we all seem to be avoiding that at the moment.
Yeah.
So caught up in tribalism, baby. But sorry about the digression to everybody. I just wanted to throw that out there real quick because Joshua gets me all fired up. But in a good way, by the way. But I'm really interested because Joshua took on the project this week of looking into, which I apologize. There we go. Looking into more of the Senate race values and what's going on in Georgia, so he can bring a little bit more real education pieces, not my viewpoints, but more of the real stuff that we really should be hearing now. I'm going to come up with just the possibilities in a bit about what I see, and we'll see if it turns out to be true or not in the future. But Joshua actually did the homework this week, and he's bringing it. So I'm really actually fired up to find out like what you discovered, and straighten me out, man. As you hear, I was wrong. Florida,
Yeah.
we got one more seat in Florida for the Senate. We're going to be okay. No, we're not.
Yeah, no, we're at like a super pivotal moment now. So for people who know me on a personal level, they know that I was pretty much born and raised in Georgia. I went to Georgia State University right in the middle of Atlanta. So I've been ordained, so to say, as a Floridian now that I've been here for so long. But I'll kind of always identify as a native Georgian. So this race is actually super close to home as well. If you know me on a personal level, you know that my little brother actually worked for one of the candidates until just recently. That candidate being David Perdue, and he also worked for David's cousin, who was the former governor of Georgia, Sonny Perdue, and also I guess now the current U.S. Secretary of Agriculture. So this is a race that kind of really hits home with me, and it's something that I kind of hold close to my heart. So whenever we look at any kind of race or what's going to happen with this upcoming election, we use polls, right? Polls, and we see polls all the time. And I never really knew what polls meant or how they were conducted or what kind of made up polls. So I did some research. Now, polling, believe it or not, is not really as rigid as you would think. Like honestly, me and you, Chad, could start a poll. All you need is a few $1,000s. You pretty much just start this organization. They're called polling organizations. And you conduct these series of surveys. Now, most people do it the worst way, in my opinion, which is probably why we're at where we're at now. And it kind of sprung up in the 2016 election. That's kind of when we started to see these polls and these kind of obscure numbers, like where are you getting that from? So most of them are done by cold calling. So you just call someone randomly and kind of be like, hey, what do you think of this candidate or that candidate? And also, most of the time, they're kind of biased, especially when you have these private organizations running these polls. So they do a lot of cold calling, a lot of online surveys, but they don't really have a lot of regulation as far as where they can get their information, what they can call accurate, So I did some diving, and they say there's a margin of error in a poll, right? Whenever you look at a poll, it's normally about 3%, and that's actually completely wrong. It's actually about 6%, but that's only one avenue of the poll, right? So there's a lot of different things that they use to kind of the margin of error for polls, which is it's more so who's the winner and who's the loser, and we know that's not really how politics works. It is in a sense as far as like the final destination, but they don't really cover candidacy or what do you like about this candidate, what do you like about that candidate. It's more so far like who do you want to win. So margin of error kind of crappy. Like I said, anybody can kind of start their own poll. So many polls are conducted by the big tech industries. So like Facebook will run a lot of polls just to kind of, they have a hold on the social media platform. A lot of people are on it. So it's kind of the easiest way for big tech to kind of get their surveys is just, throughout social media. But they really use a large population base to do their polls, which is it's not the best thing because a lot of people see large population and they think that means, it's going to be super accurate, but they don't really tell you what the population is made up of. Like, for example, in 2016, a lot of the polls were more college educated people. And this has always puzzled me. Maybe you can help me out, but it's, someone who graduated from college, especially Georgia State's very diverse. It's right in the middle of Atlanta, but somehow politics, especially the liberal side and universities have kind of combined to think that, anyone who goes to college is more of a Democrat. But I guess this poll kind of shows that it's necessarily true. That's kind of who they started surveying the most. And, polling, we think it doesn't give a lot of, emphasis on the actual outcome of the election, but it does. It really does. People will, if they see that there's a large margin between one candidate and another, it's kind of going to deter them from voting because it's going to make them think, what's the point? My guy's not going to win anyway. So we saw that in this election. Well, not this election, but in 2016, it kind of skewed some people, even though the results were, completely inaccurate in the 2016 polls. But right now, I looked at the polls. Right now, I checked it this morning. I'm just looking at it real quick. So I got John Ossoff, right, is running against David Perdue. And right now they have him at about 0.9 advantage. So again, 3%, actually 6% margin of error. So you can't really give these polls too much credit. They're just kind of like an indicator. And I think that Raphael Warnock, is that his last name? Warnock? I think I got it. Warnock.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure it's pronounced Warnock.
Yeah, he's a warlock. We'll just, we'll refer to him as that.
I'll add to that in a bit.
Yeah, he is not a great dude. But anyway, he is leading, what's her name? Kelly Loeffler, who honestly I'm not a fan of either. But he's leading her pretty, I think it's like by 1.6, so pretty big. Not necessarily big, but as far as like being a few days out from the election, that's kind of, you just got to take it with a grain of salt, right? It may be correct, it may be not. 6%, like we said. So polling is don't trust it. Don't even look at it. Don't even worry about it. Just go vote.
Yeah, I'll second that. Yeah, polling can be like, so if they want a specific thing, it's always what you set out to find. It seems like what you set out to find seems to be the thing that you do find, is almost always the case because of cognitive bias. So if I wanted to reduce your morale around you about like your political opportunities, then if you go to a college and you say, you know what, I'm going to start polling these newly educated or becoming educated, they're the more intelligent, our population kind of people, right? Like the ones that we seem to have this like idea that they're going to be more intelligent, that they're going to be a little more open-minded, that they're going to be a little bit more accurate in the way that they think because they're more forgiving, all of this, less dogma, blah, 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 right? You go to a college where the humanities are almost always deep blue. And even for my study, which is psychology, that was also, it's more blue than it is red. It's far more left mentality than it is, conservative mentality. Doesn't mean you're going to find every single person in there is that way. But if you think about it, if I wanted to finish my degree, I'd have to spend more time consistently having to memorize what is required to pass the test, whether I agree with it or not. And that's one side. I have this big gripe about that when it comes to humanities. And then the other side is that if I just wanted to elicit that response, go to college, find the people that you want to interview. You could say, I just randomly interviewed these people. Well, what is more beneficial is for people to understand the viewpoints of the professors at that college and what the college itself stands for overall versus just going, oh, these are just innocent college students. They're likely going to vote this way. Therefore, the country is going to go that direction. Therefore, that must be the right thing. And then you're like, well, hell, I wanted to vote for this other person, but why bother? Because now this poll is showing that. The polls are all over the darn place.
So many.
All over. Now, they're not credible. And I have no interest in following them. I'd rather just, you know what? If you believe something, stand for something. No matter what you hear. I'm not the person that's going to sit down and go, well, I don't have 5 other people fighting, so therefore I'm not going to stand up and go ahead and take a black eye or whatever else may come of it. I'm going to go ahead and stand up and take my black eye. I'm going to go after it. That's just the kind of person that I am. And that's something I encourage other people to do. Don't worry about what the polls say. Polls be damned. Go do something you stand for. I know. Even your flag's getting excited about
it.
Josh.
Right. You heard it. You heard it.
It's in.
Yeah, like, obviously when we give these professors at these universities almost this transfer of power to, I mean, I remember in school, like in college, the professors, they were Caesar. They were the end all be all. They just said when the exams were due, the curriculum, I'd like to do some research as far as what universities actually contribute to their professors, or is it more so like an open curriculum? They can bring whatever they want to teach. Are you familiar with that at all? Or
Well, they say that they can teach however they want as long as they don't teach outside of the curriculum itself. So, like, you're not going to be a physics major, a physics professor, and you're going to teach, you're going to go in and just exclusively teach politics. You're going to be in your field. So they're supposed to let you teach inside of your field. However, you work with the curriculum's requirements. So you can bring a lot of stuff to it. It's kind of gray in certain places. So it just depends on the subject too. Because if you have one of the hard sciences, there's not a whole lot of like leeway. But even then, I'd say the university has more of the ruling over that. That's also one of the problems with tenure. Some of these professors are privileged to tenure. They do whatever the hell they want, say whatever they want. Their jobs are secure because they met the criteria to get tenure. Um,
okay,
it's yeah. I'm not an expert in this, but that's what my level of knowledge is at. So yeah, it's unfortunately my biggest gripe when it comes to university is you take young, fresh minds that really don't have world experience other than the years that they have, which typically youth believe that they have a good grasp on life and reality as they enter in. So they go in with a sense of confidence of themselves when they go into university. They also go in with the authority values. So the pleading to authority, which is a fallacy, but yet people do that, where the authority must be right because they're an authority. They go into it, their parents say, if you want to make a good career in your life, you better pay attention to your teacher. Well, who's above a teacher? That's a professor. Right. So you have your standard academia, which is your elementary school systems and or your public school systems. Then you go from that into university. Well, who's going to have the say so then? Do you take your parents' medical advice when they tell you you need Tylenol because you have a headache? Or if your doctor says don't take Tylenol, you need this other thing, which one are you more likely to believe? Heart's going to say my parents, but yet your mind's going to be like, yeah, what? I need to pay attention to the doctor here. So same thing goes with universities. You get these young minds that go in, they have no world defenses, or their defenses are so amateur and or immature, even though they may feel they have a strong degree of value there because they've argued with their parents and their peers up to this point. But now they're going into basically a battleground of people that have spent their life learning how to argue and or position themselves to make themselves right, or to be proven that they're right. Then you have these kids that go into it, and next thing you know, you have somebody who's absolutely open, loving, and accepting of all kinds of people who now think fairly radical ideas because they've been disarmed of who they were, and now they feel like they're on more of a righteous path. They're more ripe for the picking for righteousness, if you will. And that's what I see typically that comes out of the humanities, unfortunately. And I'm more of a, like, that was the direction that I studied, was the humanities. So it's unfortunate to see. I find myself and actually almost feel like I'm extremely fortunate that I got out when I did, at the level of I still retain myself of who I was going into it versus becoming radicalized. So holding conservative beliefs.
Yeah. Because in the next guy, I kind of want to cover the candidates a little bit. I like how you talk about, kind of this position of power. So our favorite guy, Raphael Warnock, right? Warlock, Warnock. Warnock's his real name, but you can call him whatever you like. If you like Warlock, just feel free to go ahead.
Go with it.
Yeah. So he originally started out as the pastor of Ebenezer Baptist Church, which, a cool little fact, that used to be MLK's church. So that's kind of where he got his position, I guess you could so to say. His reputation kind of started in the Christian sector as a pastor. So he was first he led a sit-in. Let's see, I think it was for I got it here. He first came about as a leader who expanded Medicare and the Affordable Care Act. So he ran a sit-in at the state capitol for that Affordable Care Act, which kind of kicked his political career off in a sense. He got some recognition from the Democratic Party, kind of got his foot in the door. He was actually arrested for that sit-in later on, but that kind of got him started. He was also a big advocate for the expansion of Medicare in the state of Georgia. So he was really pushing for that, and kind of just using that new network he got from the sit-in to kind of start expanding out of his pastor role. Some of his ideas, which I thought were kind of strange for a pastor, is that he's pro-abortion, but he's against the death penalty. So I thought that was kind of an interesting take on for a pastor. It's like, oh, okay, you're supposed to be none of those, but what can you say? He actually has some kind of run-ins with the law. Just recently, did you see that video of him and I guess his girlfriend or wife? It never really says who she was. I think it was girlfriend, actually. I don't think they're married. But they kind of got called to hit their house for he allegedly ran over her foot with his car. It was never, charges were never filed. They were dropped. Similar, before he began his political career, he had another run-in with the law at one of his church camps where he supposedly had some sexual misconduct with a child, but all those charges were dropped. They said it was a miscommunication. I really couldn't find any more information about it. So it may have just been a miscommunication, but all charges were dropped. He is, he's actually pretty popular as far as just from stuff I hear. And in Georgia with that race going on, he's leading Kelly Loeffler, who, I like Kelly Loeffler. She's got some decent ideas, but part of what's kind of holding her back, I think, is that some Republicans still have this like identity of like the upper class. You know what I mean? Like they kind of get labeled as the rich people, and which she really didn't do herself many favors, because most of the stuff against her is all of the allegations for the stock fraud, that she was, again, charges were never brought to, she was never found guilty. So again, it's speculation, just like Warnock, but sometimes that doesn't transfer over into the media. The media will really kind of deordain, I guess, someone who, well, it's just a miscommunication, but then they'll, on the opposing rival or the opposing candidate, they'll just preach the hell out of whatever she did wrong. And you can see the same with David Perdue. He's kind of got, that's kind of the bad part about him as well. He's got some stock evasion fraud, but again, no charges were ever brought up. So I don't know. It's going to be tight, man. If you were to ask me who I think is going to win, I think Warnock is going to beat Kelly, just because she's not a very good speaker too. Did you watch their kind of debate? I think it was like, I want to say it was in November or December. They had a debate, those two, and she's just, I know I'm supposed to be voting for her, but she's just a wall, and he's a much better speaker, as a pastor. Pastors are very good speakers. So if you had asked me in that race, I would probably have to say that Warnock is probably going to take it, unfortunately. But I feel that David has a much better chance against Jon Ossoff, just because David's got a lot of freaking real world experience. He was the CEO of the Family Dollar. I mean, he pulled them out of bankruptcy. He's just had a lot of business experience, a lot of leader experience. He's the cousin of a former governor of Georgia, and so he has a lot of political experience. Whereas Jon Ossoff's kind of just getting started. Another thing about Jon I don't like is that he was a former journalist and a documented filmmaker, which is, we don't need any more media people making political decisions or painting the picture that you've done your whole career. You know what I mean? So so we'll see. I think David's going to take that one, just because it's, oh, here we go. We'll have to edit that out.
And actually what I would say is, at that point, that truly is a representation of how the country feels about Ossoff taking the position.
Exactly. Yeah.
Exactly. Like, no, there goes America. We've just lost it.
Right. So what do we do? Should we just pause or just kind of edit this out and I'll put it back up, or what do you think?
I'll pause. All right. So we did have a little bit of a technical difficulty there. We both have a great degree of pride when it comes to the flag. So neither one of us want to see it on the floor or coming down. Although I think it was really ominous that it came down as we're talking about some of the worst possible senators are being voted into senators in a state that's going to make the difference for our country. Florida was the state back in Bush v. Gore. Georgia's the state now that is going to make the difference for all of us. And we'll explain why in a minute. But for now, I think that was a perfect thing that it came down at that timeline, because that's how I feel about these two people getting into office, meaning the Democratic senators, Warnock and Ossoff. Ossoff?
Yeah, Ossoff. Yeah.
Ossoff. Yeah. So it comes down as kind of like stating, I think, what all of us feel when it comes to the more constitutionalists and even conservatives. So, but anyway, so as Joshua was saying there, can you pick up from there, bud?
Yeah. So I got a really good feeling about David. Just from the family connection, man. He's a great guy. Sonny's a great guy. Perdue, yes, Perdue.
Because both of them are named David.
I know. Yeah. David and Sonny. Yeah. Sorry, I have to. Sometimes I refer to him as first name. Everyone's like, who? So Perdue. But they're great guys, and they've been in the business for a long time. And They have a lot of individual achievements that they bring to the table, which I think, I mean, there's a reason why we appoint certain people to represent us. It's because we feel like they could not necessarily do a better job than we can, but probably that they have a little bit more experience with dealing with, politics is a vast thing. You're constantly pretty much diplomating and arguing, and you have to be pretty concrete in who you are and know what you stand for, and be kind of go through those situations in life where you have to make difficult decisions. So John Ossoff doesn't have that. He's never really done that. Like I said, he makes films, and he has a very little short political career. He has been in there a little bit, but he can just stick to filmmaking and journalism, and we can let the actual politicians do their job. So vote Perdue. Hopefully Loeffler can pull it off. Well, I guess we'll see. We'll see in a couple of days. But it's a big deal. I mean, remember, so all laws go through the Senate and Congress, right? House Representatives and the Senate. So if there's a balance, especially in the Senate, with one party either has complete 50-50 or one party is more so than the other, then if Joe Biden does take the presidency, then you won't see as much laws or any of the radicalism be able to get through Congress and become law. So it's a big deal. I mean, no, we all my former Georgia, people from Georgia I'm talking to, go out and do your part, and you only got a couple of days. So it's a big deal.
And for anybody who's worried about it, because I firmly believe that the elections this year specifically, most noteworthy, were completely set up. So as far as that goes, whether you think that your candidate is going to win or not, do not stay home because of it.
No.
Get out and vote. The best thing, the best worst case scenario is perhaps our candidates lose. And I mean the conservative candidates in this. Perhaps they lose. But as long as you're out voting, you could at least create the opportunity for it to be heard in court. If you don't do anything at all, there's no way it would ever be heard in court. I know you could also say, well, a lot of the cases that are trying to get voices heard in court now aren't being heard. Do not fall victim to that thinking. Whether that happens or not, don't take away the potential. So no. Get out there. If best case scenario, our candidates win, and I mean the Republican candidates in this, and I don't mean our candidates in I affiliate and I support them 100%. I support them because I don't want to see a Democrat-run Senate, Congress, and the presidency. As worst of all, no matter what you feel about each one of those policies, if it's all left controlled, doesn't matter. They will not care in the least sense how you feel about that policy. There won't be a fight that takes place from conception to creation. So there won't be anything. They will go and do anything and everything they want to do, because as far as they're concerned, all branches of government agree.
Yeah, it's 100% control. It's their dream. It's
yes,
it's any political party's dream to be 100% control. And I like what you said, because don't get me wrong, there's no such thing as a perfect politician. Jesus is not coming back to run for president. You know what I mean? Yeah. So the sooner we can understand that, hey, listen, it's not about finding the perfect guy. It's about finding the right man or woman for the job. That's what's most important. Do you produce results, right? I mean, how many bosses have we had in our life that were kind of assholes, but hey, I got the job done. Hey, if you can get the job done and you can contribute and do your job in an effective manner, then I don't really care about your history. We all have history, but yeah, just I like your point. There's no such thing as a perfect candidate. That's for sure.
No. And I've actually long since argued, and this has been 10 years in the making now, that we should actually have a complete non-party affiliated, no attachment whatsoever maturity test. You take 8 areas of maturity. You measure each one of those areas to find out what your candidate's susceptibilities are to being manipulated. And then from there, you can make a call beyond just how they talk. The 8 areas of maturity I go over in my other channel, Growing Up in the Wilds of Suburbia. For me, if you were to measure every one of those areas of maturity, you'd have an ability to gauge the person's predictable behavior even faster. Now, I hope that this time it wasn't an ominous thing about the 8 areas of maturity there.
It's apparently duct tape. Their quality's gone downhill since COVID, I guess. It's just, it doesn't work. I got to get some, I got to hit up David for some Perdue for some Dollar General tax next week. So
Yeah.
pardon the constant technical difficulties, but we're gonna try to make it through it.
We're growing. Yeah, if you want to just go ahead and grab it now, I'd say we just leave it down for the rest of the episode.
Okay.
But we'll put it out. We'll definitely make sure that future episodes are going to end up being more prepared. Even for myself, I've got some of my artwork here in the background. So I've got my Gadsden flag up here, and then I've got my Facebook propagandist flag down there, which is actually the Chinese Communist Party flag, but it just replaced the main star with the Facebook icon. So I put them out there so that we can at least throw in a little something festive in the background.
Yeah, next week it'll be up, guys. Don't worry, I'm getting some tacks. We're gonna cement that thing into the wall. It'll be Danielle can get over it. She can just look at it.
Hey, perfect. That's love, baby. All right. So, but I do want to talk a little bit about some of the things as far as like those four senators, or those four running for Senate. So some of the things I want to talk about is, first off, why is Warnock such a bad politician? But why does he come across being such a good one? And why he's beating Loeffler? So for me, like the things that I found out about Warnock, I never knew the man existed. I didn't know him from anyone else, or as the saying goes, I didn't know him from Adam. But what I have found out about this man is he's radically racist. But because he's racist against white people, no one wants to illuminate it. Because they're like, well, he can't be racist against white people because he doesn't have a position of power. He doesn't have a majority value, which is an absolute disgrace to determine for the definition of racism that was added in the 70s. And what it is it was an attempt to disarm anybody, or it's more an attempt to disarm white people from being able to claim racist attacks. Because that's the definition, right? You have the skin color values, which is, superiority based off skin color. And then the other is whoever the majority rule is. If you leave the United States, you go to another country that is going to have predominant numbers, and the majority is going to be a different color, then that's where the definition switches. Go to, hell, even South Africa, it'd switch then, if it were to, but the way they have it positioned is the definition doesn't switch, although it should based off of their own criteria. But so I digress. Point of it is what I've actually heard Warnock talking about, the sin of whiteness, and that needs to be something that we repent from. That to me is not somebody I would want in office ever, anywhere, not even for dog catcher, for street cleanup. I wouldn't want that individual in office to make any say-so over anybody else's life, because he's already coming to it with a very heavy conviction against somebody else based solely off of their skin color. No, we lack melanin in order to create value in this man's eyes based off of his own words. If you haven't seen it, go to YouTube. He is talking about white people in the United States need to repent against their sin of whiteness. To me, blood boiled. I felt ill and unbelievably conflicted that this is something that he's allowed to say, that it's allowed to be put out into YouTube videos and things like that at a standard that doesn't find there's a problem with it. But if it was the roles were reversed, change the color of skin and find out, if it's now racist or not. And that to me is just I can't put value there. The only value I'd put there is to get the hell away from it. So Warnock, definitely, he speaks very well, but that's what you find with people that make a career in the clergy. Usually the spokespeople in the clergy, priests, pastors, people that fall into that range or those types of occupations typically do speak with such a cadence that they know how to keep you from falling asleep in the boring verses of the Bible. Right? Coloring in the background, he knows how to get your attention. Now, that's one of their skill sets, which increases their popularity. There's other people in history that have done that. Hitler did it as far as uniting Germany before they became the atrocity of the Nazi armies. As he rose to power, he used the same type of setup. He used a little bit more sociology, but he used a changing in the cadence of his speech, the tonality, things like that, so that he could make it seem more emotionally invested. And that's what one of the things that they use in order to create the when you look at the clergy, what they use to create attention, keeping people there versus drifting off. Because I've sat in church many days myself, and I'll tell you that I've found myself, mind-numbingly bored at times, and it's just because the subject matter didn't actually reflect the value of my life at that time. Doesn't mean it didn't reflect it another time. It's just at that time it wasn't that relevant to me, and that's one of the reasons why I caught myself zoning out. They're good at it. That's why he has more charisma in these political debates, because he's going to come across with more of that entertainment value, even though it's not full-fledged entertainment. It's more than a Kelly Loeffler's "I'm a wall." Now, hers also, she has mainstream media working against her. They're not working for her. This is the entirety of media, the mainstream version, all but Fox. And the reason why Fox is even around is because they help balance out people's perspective of mainstream media. But if you look at what happened during the presidency run, you can see where Fox started to deviate and flip over and become more blue than they are red, to help encourage people to accept the results versus question it. So, and you can see how it directly showed up, because CNN, MSNBC, and I believe another one of them attacked some of the other directions. So whenever people were leaving Facebook for Parler and MeWe, you see that they actually went on air and did a segment, and a lot of them, in again Mockingbird style, did segments on how alt-right Parler is, because conservatives went to Parler and left Facebook and Twitter because their views weren't being heard. They were being censored, while the other side wasn't being censored as much. So they did these segments, and you can see that showed up, because the same thing happened when Newsmax started catching on more than Fox, and CNN jumped to their rescue and said, well, these people are going over to the alt-right news publishers, which Epoch Times or Epoch Times and Newsmax were now part of the, they were the far right. They were the alt-right. You don't want to be with those people. Those people are wrong. They're bad. They're ugly. They're wrong. And we see this shift over, but they did it in defense of Fox. And then Parler again was in defense for Facebook. So they have all of these different media sources that are supporting them. They are not talking about, the America needs to repent for its sin of whiteness. They won't mention that. I have not heard them mention that at all. But what I have heard them talk about is Kelly Loeffler's financial life, about her stock sellout, because she had an insider tip, which is insider trading. And she simply told everybody, which I have no reason to dismiss that this is true, that the reason why there was a stock sell-off at a time when there was a known that there was a company that was going to experience some value loss, she sold her stocks because she was privileged the information. But the reality is, she has somebody managing her portfolio. She doesn't manage it herself. And if they get wind of those changes, they're going to make the best changes for their incentives. Their incentives are to make sure that her portfolio stays as robust as possible, because they get a percentage value off of that. They get paid for it. I'm sure it's percentage value, but they still get paid for managing it properly. If they don't, they lose the account. So what you don't hear the media talk about is how many other people made transactions the day that she made those transactions off of a particular stock, and saying, well, you know what? All of these other people also made these transactions. Somebody else knew something. It doesn't mean that Kelly Loeffler had an insider tip.
Exactly.
So, and what they do is they connect that with Martha Stewart, which is saying, well, Martha Stewart went to prison for this. Why isn't Kelly Loeffler? Oh, because she has political ties where Martha Stewart didn't. And that's how they draw these kind of false equivocations. So yeah, so that's why we have this major piece. It's an identity assassination piece, which is, we're not going to talk about the negatives for Warnock, but we're really going to illustrate the negatives for Loeffler. She is the ultra wealthy. Why are we punishing successful people in our country is the issue. And no matter how much people want to think the left is all for the people, they're not. Right now, there's so many people on the left that are supporters of big tech, which is not for the people, and also large businesses like Walmart, Amazon, people like that, or companies like that. They're raking in the money because of what's going on, and they're supporting it. They're like, oh, you're the ultra wealthy, you're the 1%, blah, blah, blah. Who are they following? Bernie Sanders is no longer in the below multimillionaire. You know, he's no longer using the language, by the way. You notice that shift, Joshua?
Oh yeah, yeah.
Where he's like, it's about the millionaires. We got to stop the millionaires. They're the problem. And as soon as he became a millionaire himself and a multi-millionaire, multiple $1 million properties, things like that, then he goes, it's the billionaires. They're the problem. By the way, I do a horrible impersonation of Bernie.
Bernie.
But we're all like, well, Biden's for the people. How many homes has Biden owned, and how did he get that wealth?
Exactly. Let's dive into that a little bit. You know, I mean, people have this indication that Democrats are, you know, for the people, but I mean, so our political system really got started after or just before the Civil War, right? So people forget that it was more so the Republicans were in the North, who, you know, Abraham Lincoln got elected, that kind of sparked the Civil War, but Republicans were more so against slavery, and the Democrats, who actually controlled the South, were more pro-slavery. And now the history books like to talk about this big switch, air quote.
Yeah.
There's no proof of this big switch. There's none. The only thing that I feel happened is that we had more Republicans that moved from the North. That was kind of, you know, it was busting, right? The height of the Industrial Revolution. People were kind of making their name, and they saw this Southern, you know, these Southern states that the economy really wasn't doing that great. It kind of had a lot of opportunity. So you saw a lot of Republicans move south, not only just to buy property, but also to kind of try their hand at creating this new economic system. And that's when we got this switch from Democrats north, Republican south. And somehow we, you know, skewed our geographic location to think that all Republicans are pro-slavery and that the Democrats are actually, but no, they just literally moved, you know? So, and it's, again, I guess it goes back to some education that we got to make sure we get things right. And, you know, I mean, there were some other things that played a role, but for the most part, I never really found it to be this big switch that all these Republicans were, you know, racist. It's such a silly comparison that we make, that everyone who's Democrat is for the people, but we're all, you know, we're all a democracy, right? We're all for the same thing. So we got to stop labeling people. You know, this political identivism that just says, oh, you think this, so that's what you are. And now, especially now in history, 2020, now we're in 21, man, it's at its height. You know, you can't even, if I even mention to some people, and I don't know them that well, that I'm a Republican, oh, I've tested it, not even really said. I just wanted to see what they would say. And man, a lot of them, oh, they're racist. Like,
Yep.
why? You know?
Oh yeah. Well, immediately there's a stereotype that is it is not even an earned stereotype. It is a repeated nonsense stereotype, which is if you're Republican, you're racist. If you're Republican, you're uneducated. If you're Republican, you're crooked. Right? So that the world knows I'm not Republican.
Yeah.
I'm not a Democrat either. I'm non-party affiliated. I'm more of a constitutionalist, and I'm more of a libertarian, not an anarchist. I just feel that we don't need big government to live our lives. The bigger the government gets, the less responsible people get, which means the bigger government needs to get in order to take care of the people that are not going to be responsible. So if you don't want to be responsible and you don't want to go out and make a living, the government's going to have to step in and pay you to live so that you can survive. But they're going to want something in exchange. It's not like they're not going to ask for something. So when it comes to this, these are the things that Joshua and I are very passionate about, is trying to keep a balanced system. Do I want to see the Democratic Party eradicated? Absolutely not. Do I want to see the Republicans have control of all three chambers, right? No, I don't want to see our branches of the government. I don't want to see that either. I want to see a balanced way of communicating. Now, in psychology, and I'll share this real quick, and then I want to continue back on your side as well, Joshua. But so in psychology, the left, or one of the markers of the big five for the left, is open-mindedness. Now, on the right, which is conservative. Now, when I say right, I don't mean alt-right, which is a fault of thinking because people have been pushed to believe that nationalists and or people that are right thinking, politically right, of center, are alt-right, white nationalists. They attach these aggressive identity politics values to them that's going to be the undesirable, so that it makes them less likely to be pursued. People are not going to be as open-minded to go that way, but I digress. So left, open-mindedness, trait open-mindedness. On the right is trait conscientiousness, which is going to be more of people that They're more rule followers for being more conscientious. Now, on the left, they're not quite as likely to be rule followers as they are to be innovators. So they'll break some rules that the right won't break in order to innovate and create new things. So when it comes to a business strategy, you find that people that are predominantly left thinking are really bad at business, but they come up with amazing ideas for business. They just have next to no execution values. They don't stick with it. They don't structure it in a way that are supported in order to be successful. But on the right side, which is the conscientiousness, that side actually is more rule following and structure oriented because it helps life make it more predictable outcomes. So if you keep them separated, the right doesn't really innovate much, but they do run some pretty damn successful businesses. On the left, they'll come up with all the greatest ideas in the world that really, if they were supported, they would be amazing. But because they don't have follow through structure and direction, the left typically are going to be like the CEOs or the founders of companies. Actually, take away the CEO thing because that's not necessarily a guaranteed consistent truth. But a founder of a company is more likely to be a left thinker, an open-minded thinker. On the right, they're more likely to be the best managers and even CEOs, people that follow a specific set of structural guidelines to come up with an outcome. When they come together, they work really, really well. And that's why I want to see the continuation of the left and the right, and or just opposing ideology, policy, or politics, but yet supportive of one another to try things versus, nope, I'm going to eliminate you and your power and ability to say anything so that I can just try whatever the hell I want, untried, not true to actual execution, but yet I'm going to do these things because I got you out of the way. But everybody's got to be part of the experiment, no matter how much it fails. California has failed as a state. New York is failing as a state. Chicago can't seem to get its bootstraps, right? No. So, but we're going to let people with that type of thinking run 50 states.
Yeah,
So,
they don't take into account that, conservatives are much more, I don't want to say fear change, but in a sense we do. We don't necessarily fear change. We fear what that change could bring about in society. And I feel like Democrats, whereas I have a lot of Democratic views, I do, right? I'm registered with the Republican Party of Florida, but that's just because right now the Democratic Party has been so off the wall. But
yep.
the Democrats just really don't think about what these progressive changes will bring about, not just in government, but in society as a whole, just different ways of thinking or just completely new concepts that people probably maybe aren't ready to start digesting and to start kind of integrating into their communities. So I like, it's like you said, it's a best of both worlds is what works the best. Okay, I have this great idea, but how is that going to affect society, especially to the individual level and communities? How is that going to impact the world we live in? Yeah,
Yeah. How incredible would it be to actually be able to get along in politics?
I know. It would
So
be.
if we were left just in the United States and no foreign interference, I think we'd be better off.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
If we had to, you can make your living here, but you cannot have foreign investors involved in your living. That would actually make a bigger difference. Would we do it? No, the globalists wouldn't want
No.
that to ever
No.
happen. So as far as that goes, this is why Joshua and I are so passionate about making sure that, we do what we can to try to have it so that the system is balanced. God forbid Biden takes office. Really, it's going to be Harris who takes office, but whoever wants to go wherever, fine. But Harris becoming the president of the Senate, uh, we run to a tie. The president of the Senate is the one that makes the call.
Yeah.
So that's the deciding vote. Right now, I can't trust Mitch McConnell will ever do anything that's going to be other people's interest. He does not seem that he's going to hold the role of his position to any value that actually represents the people. He seems like he's just like the majority of other politicians, the stereotype that we get to, which is they really are in it for themselves. I would say that a lot of them started off not to be in it for themselves, but they become that way over time. What's the reasoning behind it? We can say it's lobbyist. We can say that it's self-interests, or we can say that it's companies and or other countries, foreign interests, things like that, that end up eventually shifting it. Now, I did hear something from Dan Bajano, I believe. No, Bajano.
Yeah, I know what you're talking about. He's got an Italian last name, right?
Yeah, but I heard from him when he's run for office a couple of times. From what I understand, Florida was one, and then there was another outside of Florida. I think it was in Maine, where he ran for office. And he had one of the people that actually was like a mentor to him that was, I believe, a senator. And he had told him one of the greatest um, eye-opening statements that he ever learned for politics, and it's changed the way he sees politics as a whole. And he says that there is no value in yes. No holds all control. So if you're a politician and you say, you know what, you're going to need, you want to run a business, and what he uses as an example of braiding hair. So if Joshua wanted to start a business that was braiding hair, and I say, Joshua, go ahead and start that business, Joshua has no reason to ever communicate with me. No reason to even support me.
Yeah.
Really. I mean, the only reason why he'd want to support me is that I didn't get in his way of running his business. But let's say that I say no to Joshua. Hey, no, Joshua, you can't open a business braiding your hair. Like, well, why not? I have everything I need. I have all the resources. I have everything I need. I have my client base ready to go. I'm going to make this a profitable business. Why can't I? And I just continue to say, no. Well, I'll tell you what, Joshua, instead of no, maybe you're going to need a license for that. Oh, well, now Joshua has an access to getting his business, but now he has to play my game, which is now Joshua has to go out and get a license in order to braid hair. But now I also have Joshua under my thumb, because now if there's a license requirement, which no got me there, Joshua had to pay to get that instead of just opening his business. Well, now let's say that there's a licensing issue and I'm like, you know what? I want a little bit more. No, Joshua, the license now increased in its cost. Or maybe you did something I didn't like. Or I want something from you. You didn't do anything wrong at all. But I'm like, yeah, you know what? The license are actually going to be suspended for now. But that also means your business opportunities are suspended. Well, Josh is like, I need to work. I have a reason to do this. I have people that depend on me. What can I do? Maybe I should throw a little bit of money at you. Maybe I should grease the wheels a little bit. Open my business back up. Stop this. So throw a little bit of money at me. I just gave you a no, and this is the access to a yes. But it's all within my control. So as Dan learned that there's no power in yes, that can very well be part of the game you learn early on. You don't say yes, you say no. Even whenever you're okay with yes, you say no. And before you know it, people are now bending every which way possible in order to get a yes from you. So that's the thing about politics, I think actually illuminates, and it puts it out, it spotlights it to tell us these are some of the reasons why people change when they get in. Term limits are really necessary, in my opinion, for every branch, because when people get good at the game, they get really good at the game. But if you're doing that as a politician, who's doing it to the politician? It's not going to stop at the politician.
No.
Somebody else is going to do it. Now, companies that are smart are obviously going to gain leverage, and they're going to be like, you know what? I'll have money to put towards the candidate I like. The candidate that's going to come in without even knowing any of this stuff. They're fresh, but they're going to be my candidate. I'm going to help get them elected by putting a lot of money out. We're going to get the best of the best to actually say what they want to, what they need to say on television and or their advertisements in order to get this person into office. And before you know it, now you've got this entire system that isn't what it looks like. What it looks like is Loeffler is a big money girl. She only cares about herself. She sold off her stocks in order, with an insider tip. She's got her own jet. She's got all this stuff. She doesn't need it. She just wants to make her family ultra wealthy. And here we have this lowly little pastor, this person is really for the people. This guy that absolutely loves people. He's a reverend. Why would you love this guy? Of course he cares about you. He cares about the little guy. All the while, what they won't tell you is that he thinks that white people are a problem and that they need to be under control, right? That whiteness is a sin and all of this. And I'm harping on that because it pisses me off to the core. Something like that is actually going to likely get elected.
As a Christian, I'm gonna let you know, I've read the New Testament from front to cover, and there's not one thing in there that says any race is a sin. Not one, right? We don't even know. I mean, we know that Jesus was a Jew. But as far as race goes, there's not much talked about as far as race goes. So
Yeah.
yeah, as a Christian, that pisses me off. And I'm surprised that some of his followers at that church still go there. You know, what just tells you how easily, like you said, pastors, you got to be careful with pastors. Most people stay away from religion because of churches, organized churches, not because of the ideals that they bring. It's because how humans like to manipulate the word to fit their agenda, which is, I guess, what we're seeing with him.
Yeah. That's what gets me really fired up. And I
Yep.
appreciate you throwing that in there as well, Joshua, because
Yep.
it's what you have to watch out for is the charisma. Oh, because just being charismatic does not mean that they're sincere. Although, if you don't seem sincere, you're not charismatic. So imagine having 20 years of polishing practice on a daily basis. And every time you're successful, you have a direct indicator of success by financial reward or some other reward value that you cherish as much as finance, as much as the money. And then before you know it, you have somebody who really is studying to make change or trying to make change, which I'm not accusing Kelly Loeffler of that either. I'm not saying she's out for making change for people, but there was a reason why she was put in the position to be running for that seat. But so you have somebody who's consistently practiced and being more popular. You have somebody who studies things that are not popularity based as much as they are eliciting some sort of change. That person's going to come before the microphone and in front of people for a debate, and they're not going to do as well as the charismatic person.
No.
No, there's a reason why Al Sharpton is even out there jumping subjects, but at the same time, not. I'm using him to illustrate this. Al Sharpton is for all intents and purposes, the man is a race baiter. He
Yeah.
makes his living off of creating division.
He hasn't
But
been to church in a while.
yeah, no,
Al Sharpton hasn't been in mass in a little bit, you know.
yeah, or at least he hasn't really done anything that had to do with really being part of religion.
No.
Now, so when it comes to all of this, the reason why we're getting so fired up about it is because it really does make that much of a difference for all of us. I would rather that we still have a chance for a radical bill to get shot down versus easily approved. Now, what happens in the timeline that company or that those people are elected and what bills go into law? You know, it takes a act of Congress, no pun intended, to start taking some of these laws out to prove that they're unconstitutional. You actually go through a major process in order to get to that. It is not something it's like, oh, they're unconstitutional, therefore they're gone. No, it's a process to get stuff out that have been made into law. So, and when these things get put in, as we've seen with the most recent relief bill, which was a defense bill and a stimulus, what we see going into that, by the way, I'm wanting to transition off, but do you have anything else you want to say as far as the Senate?
With the Senate race, no, just keep an eye on it. You know, it's like I said, Tuesday. It's a big day. Just keep an eye on it. Don't worry too much about the polls. Hopefully, we kind of get a little bit what happened with the presidential race, where we get these kind of late voters that show up on election day and give us a little boost. Maybe trick the polls in a sense. So, yeah, big day Tuesday. You know, that's just kind of the first appetizer that's going to be January. So keep an eye out for it. Hopefully Purdue, hopefully Loeffler do well. Hopefully we can get some people in there who actually want the better for everyone, not just a certain group.
Yeah, I agree. Completely echo that.
Yeah.
But so with that aside, this stimulus bill, if this particular stimulus bill, and it was the stimulus and defense bill, if this one doesn't piss people off, I don't know what will piss them off. There are so many things in that bill that are so blatantly against the American people. So we get $600 individually for
Nothing. It's a drop in the hat.
Right?
Just so people know, before you get started, $1 trillion. Okay. First off, it's a $900 billion bill, right? So 900 billion minutes ago, Jesus walked the earth. So that's how much money it is. It's $1 trillion, which is almost $1 trillion. If you stack that, it'll go to the moon. That's how much money it is. So go ahead. It's a bunch of money, which we don't have, by the way.
Yeah,
this
it's all fabricated. How we have it is we're taking it from our future.
Exactly.
If we can survive long enough as being the United States for what we know it to be, that's where it's coming from. So there's a process to all of it. So $600 to the American people, individual legal American citizens, you get $600. Now, there's $25 million goes to gender studies in Pakistan. Why do we give a damn about Pakistan's gender studies when we have American businesses closing? We have people that can't go back to work because of government restrictions, not because the medical science proves it, because we have less than 1% death rate from COVID. But we have people that can't go back to work, people that aren't allowed to make a living, that their life ambitions are being destroyed. Now, fortunately, you and I live in Florida, where we have a governor that actually has some cojones, right?
The best. Ron DeSantis is literally like, he's my favorite candidate that would be out there for any position. Like,
absolutely, if he decides to run for president, yeah, I'm gonna.
I'll be out there with a sign, you know.
Hey, damn right. So far, he has not betrayed me in any way that I would say that he's not deserving of. But so he says, no, we're not shutting down Florida. And people are like, oh, there's going to be this plague level death and all of this. And I'm like, you know what? I have so many clients in the Tampa area and in Tallahassee where I have a lot of connections that will directly tell you that our medical system is not under heavy burden from COVID. It's actually not even under burden from COVID.
I believe his saying was, he said in his address was, I don't want to cry over spilt milk. That's pretty much what he said. It was, we didn't even get close. Nowhere. I was like, what was it? Like 0.6% capacity or something like that. It was
next to nothing.
Yeah, it was a good shape.
The only influx was in January whenever people were overreacting, which is understandable. And we also medically overreacted where we came up with treatment methods that actually caused more harm than good. We didn't know any better. Understandable. And I absolutely, it sucks that we've had people that had bad experience and or died from it. But then we have states that are generating massive numbers, right? So we have New York generating massive number of infection and claimed deaths and all of this, which I don't believe a damn thing Cuomo says. And you go over to Gavin Newsom in California, California, if you will. Like that state is absolutely just, it is under some of the worst policies you could possibly have. They're wanting to charge people, if you've lived there for 10 months or more, they're wanting to back charge you state taxes. Oh, really? They're trying to go after Rogan for it. They've threatened Elon Musk with it, like all of this, because the state is hurting so much for money that they're trying to balance their budget. So California is California. They're just, I hope that the Republican Party and California are capable of making a separate state, New California, and let's go ahead and call it the 51st state. It'll take over. It'll be more, I guarantee it'll be more productive than South California or old California would ever be. Because they just can't create policies that actually work for the people. They say they do, but everything creates more chaos. They're the chaotic state. Like Washington,
right?
Washington, Oregon, those states are just like, what the hell happened there? It's almost like California leached, or not California, Canada leached down that side. It's like overspilled into those states. So we have $600 back to the stimulus bill. $600 going to an individual American person. So $600. How much further would $25 million have taken us? Now, maybe not, it wouldn't have taken us much further, but we're allocating our future and gender studies in Pakistan.
What does that even mean? I mean, I know that, now, especially now with this whole movement that we have, but what does that mean? Are they studying how many males live in an area, how many females live in an area? Gender studies, that's such a broad term. What is that? Where's my money going? Because it's funny, I had someone say, I was kind of kidding with someone, and he said, well, that wasn't your money you sent me. And I was like, well, it kind of was. You know what I mean? It's our money that we sent.
It absolutely is your money. You have to pay it back.
Where's going? Where's my check at? I want to see where my $25 million is going for gender studies in Pakistan. Elaborate, not you, but elaborate, government. What does that mean?
Whoever said that to you, by the way, it's not your money. That person, have they ever even looked at economics?
Yeah, it was it was more of a family thing. I was kind of playing on words a little bit. So but then I had to remind them, hey, listen, it is, it was for me, it was from you, it was from your mom, it was from everybody, Yeah.
So every single dollar, just like they say, taxation without representation is theft. The Tea Party, which, let's get away from the Tea Party of the early 2000s and late 90s. Let's go with the actual Boston Tea Party. That was all because the United States finally got tired of it. Our early colonizers got tired of paying England for something that they didn't want, which was they didn't want the damn tea. They said,
No.
I don't want your tea anymore. And England says, I don't care, pay me. And like, we're sending it over, you're sending the money back. Now,
Across the Atlantic. You're not even here. Across the Atlantic.
exactly. You will turn it over. So at that timeline, by the way, the Revolutionary War, that took a lot longer than most people understand.
Oh, yeah.
It was not a 1 month. It wasn't 2 months. You know, people fought on opposite sides before they finalized where they actually fought. You know, there was times whenever there were certain people that are patriots that actually defended, you know, the mother London, you know, Britain. So, but they came back over and finished the war in the right place, which is our independence. So we'll actually have to look some of that stuff up for later episodes because it's actually pretty fascinating.
Mhm.
So we have a lot of stuff that are history that we've done, and we've become so soft in our life now that we're like, no, we'll never get to another. By the way, it would not be a civil war; it would be a revolutionary war because it's about defending the Constitution, not about civil rights individually. It would be about our rights constitutionally, which would mean it'd be a revolutionary war because we're going to be fighting. If we end up getting to that, we would be fighting people that are foreign investment or foreign influence investors that are represented by Americans that are not vested in American longevity or well-being. They're invested in themselves and they've been in that position. So what's the likelihood that we'll end up getting into something? I think it's becoming more and more prevalent as the days go on. Will it happen? I hope not. But at the same time, I don't want to see us lose everything
No.
by just sitting down and letting them take it. So,
Yeah, the Civil War was a perfect storm. You know what I mean? It really was. The North and South were so different.
yeah,
And where they had the South paid for all their own stuff. So you won't really see a civil war of that nature ever again. You're right.
Yeah.
It'll be more uprising, revolutions. It was yeah, I like that. Good, because I hear people say civil war all the time. I'm like, nah, are you gonna pay for it? Remember
Yeah.
the South, you know, both sides, you know, the Southerners were like, we have the money, so let's pay for it. And the, you know, the North, they had money. But that's not really the case with this one. This is gonna be more militia based if it happens. Like you said, hopefully not, but
but the way it's going, I got to tell you, we've got this horrible bill that just got passed. We have money going all over the world, but yet Joshua and Chad have to figure out how we're going to pay our bills. We're both working, but we're not working at the capacity we were before.
no.
I did not foolishly I purchased to my income level. I purchased lower than my income level fairly drastically, but it was still based off of a production job, which I purchased well lower than. I could have bought a much bigger house. I could have bought a newer, more fancy car. I could have and got the truck of my dreams, all that stuff. But I decided not to
You did the
because
smart thing.
I decided, what's that?
You did the smart thing. You should preach about this a little bit more, that people need to learn to live below their means so you can have this thing called a safety net, you know?
Yeah, it's just really simple. This is the way that I looked at it. And there's other people going to have different equations for themselves. And I know this is a digression, but screw it. We're going to throw a little bit of chat.
Screw
All right. The way that I decided to budget and purchase is I am at the maximum of what I'm actually okay with purchasing. When I was at the height, when I made the purchase decisions, was 40% of my actual income. Now that's my net income, not my gross. Up to 40% could have been consumed. The rest of it needed to be set out for safety net, the safety egg, all of the things that are necessary in order to prolong in the event something happens. So the event something happened. All right.
Oh,
I
did
made
it?
a career change a year before COVID. So I made a career change that changed my income and I dropped off. I gave myself the chance. I gave an entire year to try to make the other job work, the other opportunity, learned a lot out of it. And I went to a job that I'm actually pretty good at, actually really good at, which tried and true. But COVID hit. Oh, and now because the job that I'm actually really good at and tried and true good at, I don't have the same capacity, which is the unforeseeable. Fortunately, I did with my own rules, which is at that 40% capacity, 40% of my income. Fortunately, I did that. Otherwise, I would have actually lost everything, or I would have lost some things had I actually purchased above that. So if anybody's going to take anything out of this other than going, those are dastardly good looking guys, it would be, you know, really when you're going to buy something, try to budget yourself in such a way that you don't overdo it. because nobody expected this, thing to hit. And, try to do everything you can to be as safe as possible. Play smart.
My
I,
dad told me, do you need it or do you want it? Make sure that you always do needs over wants. That's a kind of little simple trick that I use. Do you need it or do you want it?
yeah.
Big difference.
Understanding how to qualify need versus want.
Yes.
Because there's a lot of times want looks like need.
Yep.
So there's ways of justifying it, which I'm sure that you have your own process for, the same as I do, which is there's plenty of things that you want, but the reality is, how long does it actually have a value for you that would justify need? How is it going to change your life, and what can it do to support your life? So a lot of value in that stuff, but not to go too far into digression that way as well. Your father is a wise man. In the book Rich Dad Poor Dad by Robert Kiyosaki, he also talks about that, and that was his rich dad view. No, not his poor dad view. Poor dad view was more for the want, and his rich dad view was more for the need. But it was also, how do you create what you want?
Yep.
How can you create it versus the poor conversation, which is I'll never have it. So yeah. So, but as far as the bill goes, we have money going out all over the place. Was it $167 billion are going to the American people at their $600 paychecks, or the $600 check that we got for the new stimulus? There was over a $900 billion bill that was passed, that stimulus plus defense package. It's over 900 billion, or 900 billion, almost $1 trillion. Where's the rest? There's almost $800 billion that went elsewhere, offshore. So, who was it? Ted Cruz? No. Rand Paul.
Right.
That dude has, I swear, not all heroes wear capes, but that guy, I swear, has a Teflon cape. That thing doesn't hold a wrinkle.
I love him.
But
he just goes out there and just lets them have it.
oh, I love that guy. And I didn't realize how much I like this guy. Now
Me
I'm all
neither.
like,
Me neither.
he's going. I absolutely, him, Ron DeSantis, I want him to go for president. I absolutely
Look at
want
his
him.
dad. Just so people know, that's Ron Paul's son. Is Rand Paul.
Yeah. No, Ron Paul is awesome. I think he's a little bit more radical than Rand, but still, Ron Paul's more of he's more of a libertarian. Rand Paul is kind of conservative libertarian, which you can actually have. You can actually have left libertarians as well. They're a real thing. I don't know any, but I've heard about them.
Yeah,
I think they're like White Buffalo. But so Rand came out saying, this is how incredibly stupid Congress makes the American people look, especially to foreign interests. We borrow money from China, and then we send them money back that is not a loan payment. Basically, we borrow money.
Hey, can you hear me?
But actually, my microphone came on.
There we go.
Detached. We borrow money simply so that we pay back. We're borrowing money. We give the money back, but we're only doing it for the purpose of paying interest. Now, it's just absolutely insane. But the reason why we don't know about it as an American citizen is because they're crammed inside of bills like the one that just got passed by the House, by the Senate. They vetoed Trump's position on it. So they got past the presidency because they basically made it veto proof, which they had more than enough people to actually say that they approve of that particular package or the bill. But there's so many things in it. It was over 5,000, like 5,900 and something pages in that damn bill. But it was hidden under the veil of, this is relief money to the American people. When we got just at 1/9 of the package value, but we're going to pay back 100% of it.
Yeah, it has nothing to do with COVID. It's a COVID bill that has nothing to do with COVID.
No.
I told someone, I was like, so it's just take like $50 out of your bank account, pick some random address in Pakistan or Turkey or Italy, and just send it there. That's exactly what the bill is. Just don't worry about where it goes. Just pick a random address and don't put your return address because you ain't going to get it back. Nope. Just send it.
Yep. So I have a view of why gender studies. So right now on the political scale, if you look at the let's say it's the world theater, China's pushing on certain countries. China's pushing on Russia, which Russia replied. Putin sent him a missile as a reply, right? So China pushed on to try to take some territory, and Russia's like, no, no, you're not getting it, but I'll give you a missile instead. So he sent a missile back over, which really didn't hear about it because that's between two superpowers, right? But you would think you'd hear about it because it's between two superpowers.
It's a
Uh,
big deal.
so he sent over a missile that says, hey, back up. China starts pushing on, so they're after Taiwan, Hong Kong, which Hong Kong is in China, right? But it's a separate entity because it was under British rule. There was a 100-year agreement before they would actually turn the city of Hong Kong back over to China. That was supposed to end, I believe it was 2030 or 2036, I believe, something like that. It's somewhat soon, but not yet. And China's like, no, screw it, we're going to take it anyway. Taiwan's not even allowed to be called a country, according to WHO. If you recall that back when COVID first hit, a reporter asked about Taiwan and about their death rate, and WHO, the director of WHO, World Health Organization, the call dropped. When she got back on the phone with them or back on their Skype conversation or Zoom call or whatever the hell it was, forgot the medium they used, but it was a video conference call. She asked him again, and he said, I already answered the question. It's just, no, you didn't. I don't have an answer for that. And he goes, well, let's move on. This is why I don't want to move on. Let's answer that question. It was, well, this conversation's over because they won't recognize Taiwan as its own country, as China wants it.
They don't
So
want to say what. So do they got movement in Taiwan now? Have they started to kind of move troops into there, or is it just kind of like a under the table?
We just sent over a couple of carriers, so some naval ships, to go do a little walk down one of their major rivers or along one of their sea channels or whatever. We obviously need to do some more research into this so I could actually have the specific names of where everything is. But the United States sent over for supporting Taiwan to say, you know what, they're not alone, you know. So there's more to it. That's actually something that I'll probably bring to the next conversation, or it will be in this near future. So we have that. We also have, and I wasn't aware of this until recently, China's pushing on Pakistan. They're trying to infiltrate some land, which they actually have an agreement. There's a no arms agreement in this particular territory where Pakistan has part of it and China has another part of it, but they have a disarmament agreement. So they're not allowed to actually bring any type of firearms or weaponry that would be firearms related. So no guns, no grenades, no explosives, nothing like that. So what they do is they go in with rocks, bats, and things like that, and they fight each other with rocks and bats.
Really?
Yeah. Oh yeah. There's plenty of people that die in it too. I was just, a friend of mine was telling me about, because he's following this very closely. He said that recently they had 12 killed. They're killing each other with baseball bats in this terrain. So, but it's the Chinese versus Pakistani.
Interesting.
Yeah. So China's pushing on Pakistan to take a land grab. And then you see what happened here. We have a lot of the professors that have allegedly taken money from China or the CCP, and they're teaching humanities. Predominantly, these are humanities teachers, professors in universities. So they're teaching things like critical race theory, gender studies, things like that. Why is it Pakistan and the United States would have any interest whatsoever in any way to have anything to do with Pakistan and gender studies? Well, if you look at what it's done here, it's created more civil unrest where we were coming together pretty well, in my opinion. The gender pay gap, I don't see it. I don't understand how that would actually be a thing that can happen in capitalism. Who's going to rightfully want to lose money by hiring a guy if he's going to have to pay him more when a woman would work for less, or like they can give her less? Now there's more in it to psychology to why there's lower agreed upon salaries, but we have the gender pay gap. We have critical race theory. We have a lot of things that are coming out of universities that look like they're educational sabotage for communities or groups. So if you want to separate groups, give them a reason to dislike each other. Oh, and I can see that that could be one of those things. Is right now the left is highly charged by, or they're fired up over the gender studies, critical race theory, things like that. Which if you go to get a degree in one of those and you don't have a outcome that actually gives you a job, you're probably going to be pretty frustrated. So there's already going to be some civil upset. Plus, that at this point, you're going to be an articulate person if you got a degree in one of those areas. So then you just go around arguing all day and being upset. Not saying everybody's that way. This is just an outlook that I have. But China can't directly pay Pakistan for that. But if they have somebody else that they're using as a conduit, it could also be one of the ways of getting Pakistan to become less stabilized so that it's easier to take their land. I would say that that's a possibility. At this point, this is only in a theory, and a theory non-scientific. This is my hypothesis in a scientific direction. I think that this is a high probability. I wouldn't necessarily say it's an absolute, but I would say that if China wants more land and they have this already as a practice thing, which we know China is they're very calculated in what they do, and not everything that we see. They pride themselves on being intelligent and being calculated. Same thing as India. They also pride themselves in that, being very intelligent. If you ever dealt with people like people of India, when it comes to business conversation, sales, stuff like that, there's a reason why they work the way they do when it comes to negotiations. It's not about saving money as much as it is about the fact they got a really good deal. But there's more to it. It's a traditional thing. In sales, I've had to work with multiple different backgrounds when it comes to it, and there are specific personality traits that show up, which is interesting to me. But as far as China goes, why would they be like? What would be their reward for a change like that? They're pushing on Pakistan. They want land. Right now, they can't go to a world war just yet because it'll be basically China against the world. Is the way I look at it and the way that I've seen it up until this point. Seems like they're bullying a lot of countries.
Oh yeah.
They push on a lot of them.
And
So
not just physically, right? We got cyber attacks. We got, there's a lot more ways you can manipulate countries just besides based on like actual invasion or like taking physical land. Technology, the internet's kind of opened the doors for all kind of invasions, and like you said, reminder, it's not China that's sending money to Pakistan for gender studies, it's we are. So that's what's kind of interesting,
and
right? That raises the flag.
yeah, as a citizen, I cannot tell you in any way how that's valuable for that country, especially when we're in need. I just don't. It doesn't make sense to me. Now, also the other things that we discussed in the last episode, which is where money's going. We actually have the arrogance of Congress giving themselves a raise when they've denied giving us any money. No,
And they haven't missed a paycheck, not one.
missed one
Not one
paycheck
missed
whatsoever.
except for the president because he donated it, by the way.
Yeah, no, except you're exactly right, and that's a good point. President Trump has donated his salary all 4 years that he's been in office, or every year that he's been in office, he's donated it. So the other one is Congress again. They gave themselves an additional $25 million salary bump for the House of Representatives. Now, that's insane to me. That we've actually got to that point and they feel like they're justifiable for it, but yet we've received a $1,200 check as an individual and we've received a $600 check as an individual. Still waiting on what I call it is the foreign aid hush money.
Pretty much.
Yeah, it's your $600. Shut up, take it. We got you something.
What would be better than a check actually allowing to run our economic system the way it should be, and
100%.
actually just open back up. That'd be the best way to do it.
Yep. But wait, Joshua, the only way that's going to work is if you're running the risk of dying from this condition, which is, it's got a huge death rate on it, less than 1%. But you know what? Kill your economy for it.
Yeah.
But here's another thing. You've got a vaccine that you're working on. You have a couple of different companies that have actually put out a vaccine for this, and we got the super strain coming. Sorry, that vaccine won't work.
I know you saw that. I thought that was convenient. All of a sudden, there's this new super strain. Which, by the way, most of the medical doctors that I've listened to talk about that super strain, besides Fauci, who's just
Fauci's
just worthless. They always say it's been here.
I'd say that Fauci's as much of a doctor as Bill Gates is at this point.
Yeah,
by the way, he flip flops and lies to people.
Yeah, which also, Bill Gates, he had some, he had a little bit of part in that vaccine. He had a little bit of, as we saw, right? That video sent me the other day. It was, it wasn't just doctors working on this vaccine. Let's just say that.
Yeah. So when it comes to waking the people up, this is what we're talking about. Does it mean that we want everybody to agree with us? No. What it does mean, though, is that we both are open to exploring what is going on and try to finally look at it from a different perspective. For me, I cared nothing about politics because I really didn't think it made a difference to have any interest in it. It was just more filler information that took me away from my life. Now I see it that it's a little bit different than that. And I will give credit to President Donald Trump for that, because he did wake me up by having some of these people come out and start attacking him. At this point, it's pretty much everybody that was going to attack him has attacked him. We're just now becoming more aware of who's doing what behind the scenes, the veil of ignorance that we've lived behind. So a lot of us, the one that I personally live behind. So waking the people up, this is our intention. So it's, we want to be able to bring something that creates a different discourse, a different even way of thinking. So open it up. We don't need tribalism. We need to really come together as a people and to say, you know what, we may disagree, but we can at least say why we disagree and not get overly emotional about it. We can conversate around it. We don't need to get to the point where we're like, we'll punch anybody who disagrees with us.
That's where we're at, you know. And
Absolutely.
the techniques, the you know, the one ideologies, the cancel culture, the erasing of history. I as far as like, I'm a big history buff. I study it daily. But like, it's not one time has cancel culture or erasing of history actually benefited a country, right?
Nope.
Ancient China did it, ruined it, right? It was just a lot of the dynasties fell because we either just a lack of historical notation, right? Not keeping history, or keeping history to what the state wanted you to think was history. So it's never worked out. It's never, ever worked out.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
You know, if you think about just using Rome as an example, ancient
Mhm.
Rome, the Romans running around, they were colonizing and they were under imperialism. They were out just trying to like take as much land as they could. When they would go in, they would attack specific farmers because their populations were small by comparison to the forces of the Romans. They would go in and they'd fight, they'd attack. You know, they did certain tactics. They would, when they would defeat their enemies, they'd salt their land so that they wouldn't be able to grow crops, so they couldn't protect or take care of themselves. We have all of this stuff going on where this is their tactic. But what ended up happening is they pissed enough people off. And then as Rome continued to squabble because of them being victorious, often people wanted power. So the Senate is where Rome started to fall, is them fighting each other. They killed Caesar, and then they tried to put restraints on everyone that followed after Caesar. So eventually it got to the point like Rome was fighting itself. That's what we're doing as the United States. We're fighting
Okay.
ourselves for the ones that we've made enemies of, because we weren't always the hero of the story. I don't know of any country that's ever been the hero always. Right? It's foolish to think that we always have been, although we sit with the idea of being right. But we've pissed off enough, but we also have allies. But right now we're fighting amongst ourselves. Now we're fighting amongst ourselves because of ideologies that we hold, which is who's right, who's wrong. What's the difference between that and the Senate of ancient Rome? Now, the barbarians are one that took Rome down. Now, but it was because they got through. They laid siege on of Rome. They let the people starve. They got desperate and they started accepting terms. And before you know it, whenever the barbarians finally came in the doors, which we called them barbarians by history, but they actually had their own tribal names. When they finally got through, Rome wasn't even so much as even close to being able to fight them.
Nope.
Their forces were spread too thin. They were all over the damn place, and they basically handed over the keys.
Yeah.
That's when Rome fell. Now it was up to, I believe it was 100 years after Rome fell before the outpost got words of it. So they'd have their own outpost. They'd basically live there
Yeah.
uh, without having any interaction with Rome, but they were under orders. You continue and we'll update you as it goes. So it's just fascinating, which if it's
Yeah.
truly was 100 years or not. But the point of it all was, that's a little tidbit that's not necessary for this point. But the point is, the reason why they fell was because they weren't unified.
Hmm.
They looked like it on the outside, but once you realize on the inside, they weren't unified. They were a complete mess. They were a disaster. That's where you become weakened. That's where, you can easily just have foreign soldiers walk right in and take everything. Uh, Not saying that's going to happen. I'm just saying that that's one method to actually make it easy. A war that's won without a single blood drop fallen is a successful and very strategic war by whoever won that. So
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
moving division, because they moved, just to kind of the Roman comparison still, I mean, it's on point with what we're kind of going on with today. When they moved the capital from the Roman Empire from Rome to Constantinople, that created even more division, which we kind of see even in our country with, California kind of becoming its own thing politically, and, all these other kind of big, heavy populated areas that are, honestly, they take up most of the, the draw as far as electoral colleges and just, so we're seeing this division, even not even just in, our own individual people in our communities, but just as a geographical division, political division. Yeah, it's very relevant. It's true, and they don't want you to paint the pictures. They want you to keep thinking, oh, we're okay, everything's fine. Just go back to sitting at home.
Yeah, just go back to paying your taxes.
They don't want you to be educated. They really don't. And that's another tool that's been used throughout history. People don't, rulers or any big political party or any type of control, they don't want you to be educated what's going on. So that's another reason why we decided, even if our education you may not agree with, it's not always going to be completely 100% correct, but at least it's an option, right? If it wakes up anybody to want to think differently or just maybe pursue more ideas that you already believe in, hey, mission accomplished, right?
Yeah.
Knowledge is power.
Absolutely. Knowledge and action.
Yeah, it's true. Yes.
Oh, and also being diverse in your knowledge base, being okay with not being right, but being okay enough to think that you actually can learn everything. Just how much do you want to learn and how much do you have time to learn it and how does it apply to your life?
Yep.
So there's
That's the key to success there, right? One of the big keys to being successful is not thinking you're right all the time.
Oh God.
Because once you think you're right, you're just I've done it. Everyone's done it, right? We put the blinders on to what's actually going on and we don't even seek the actual truth. And it's actually holding you back to your cynicism because you're not even trying to better yourself, Yeah.
There is a such thing as an educated idiot.
Oh yeah. Yeah, I've been one.
Like, oh yeah, I've been there myself, and I actually am that in certain subjects because I'm not an expert at all subjects, but I'm interested to learn, and that reduces the idiocy on my behalf, which is more or less just confusing ignorance for idiocy. Idiocy would be like I don't want to learn. Ignorance is I just haven't been presented the information yet. I want to learn. I just don't know. I'm innocent in that area because ignorance is really innocence of information. You just don't have it yet.
Yeah.
It doesn't mean you can't have it. Stupidity would be, I know I don't know it and I don't care.
Yes.
Now, there's a big difference. So, all right, we've gone on a little bit for this one, but it's always great. Subjects grow as they grow. Conversations go as they do. But this one, definitely, if you live in Georgia, please get down there. Get out and vote. We're not going to tell you which direction to vote, but I will tell you that I hope to see that both of the Republican candidates win. Just simply because I just don't want to have government have that much control. Things will drastically change in the 4 years that's coming. I'm pretty firm in that position. Not 100%, but my level of certainty is higher than I really want it to be. And with that, that's my position on it. Just stay open to it. And if this last stimulus bill didn't piss you off, then just simply get a copy, start reading, even if it's just bullet points. Read. Please read it. Find out for yourself why we're both pretty upset about what just happened. So, but that's my take on it, my 2 cents, and my reason to not hit the snooze button anymore and to get the hell up. Joshua, you got anything in closing for us?
Don't trust the polls. Georgia, we've been Republican for so long, which isn't necessarily a good thing, but let's just make sure that we don't allow these outside influences. And maybe another episode, I'll kind of, dive into what I mean by that, because a lot of these people that are voting this way are not originally from Georgia. But let's make sure that we hold our roots to what made us one of the greatest states in the country. Let's make sure that we use our own brains to decide what we want for that state, and not allow the media or polling or unnecessary outside influences affect your decisions. Be true with who you are, right? Vote the way you want. Go David Perdue. I got to throw that in there. Sorry, I can't. I got to be biased with David. And hopefully Kelly can pull it through. She can get through the warlock, and we will have some stability in our great nation so that everyone can get what they want. That's pretty much it.
Yeah. Couldn't have said it better. All right. Well, that's it. Again, I'm Sir Chad Everett Brochures and my
The one
co-host.
and only Josh McClendon, right?
That's right. And we'll catch you guys next time. Please don't hit the snooze button. Wake the hell up. Join us for coffee. Now,
Yep. See you soon.
yeah.